At 82 years old, my heart stopped. In 2025, for 4 minutes, I was clinically dead. But what we fear most in this life, the end, is not an end at all, it is a door, and I crossed it. I spent my life fighting for a house, clutching a brass key as if it were my greatest treasure, only to be shown the truth on the other side. What we build on earth are only shelters made of sand. The only home that truly matters is the love waiting for us, a place that cannot be bought, sold, or locked with a key. I was sent back with an urgent message for you. I ask you to stay and listen to my story, not only with your ears, but with your heart. If you feel the calling, subscribe to join our community on this journey of faith. And please, share your own prayers or thoughts in the comments below so we can find strength in one another. I was there, and I came back to tell you that God's love is real. You know, there is a silence that settles into a house when a life that once filled it is gone. It isn't the silence of peace. It's a heavy silence that sits on the furniture and clings to the curtains. After my Daniel passed away, that silence filled every corner of our home. I would sit in his armchair, the leather worn smooth from years of use, and feel the weight of that silence more heavily than my 82 years. Every creak of the floorboards was a conversation we were no longer having. Every shadow in the corner was his absence made visible. My faith, which had once been a strong and sturdy oak, had become a withered vine. Bitterness, you see, a weed that grew slowly, unnoticed, choking my heart. I felt forgotten by my children who were busy living their hurried lives, always with an excuse, always with a, "I'll call you later." And in the silence of that house, I began to fear the most terrible kind of forgetting, being forgotten by God. That afternoon I was sitting there in Daniel's chair, watching dust angels dance in the sunlight streaming through the window. It was a silent ballet, the only movement in that stillness. The house smelled of old books and lemon wax, the scent of an entire lifetime. And then, like a cold breeze slipping through a crack, I heard their voices coming from the kitchen. They spoke quietly, in secret, thinking my hearing was as fragile as the rest of me. But the walls of this house know my soul, and their words found me like sharp arrows. Nursing home. Sell the house. It's for her own good. For my own good. Their words were not a whisper. They were thunder shaking the foundation of my world. They saw a property to be claimed, a burden to be removed. They did not see the grandchildren's height marks on the doorframe, or the spot in the garden where Daniel planted my favorite rose bush. They saw bricks and mortar. I saw the ghost of my husband's laughter in every plank of the floor. At that moment in my pocket, my hand closed with a strength I didn't know I still had around the house key. The brass key, cold and solid. I squeezed it so tightly its teeth dug into my palm. It was the last thing that still felt like it was mine. My identity, my dignity. That was when their betrayal became something physical. A new pain, fierce and sudden, ignited in the center of my chest. It wasn't the familiar pain of my tired back or swollen knees. It was crushing pressure, hot and relentless, as if an iron band were tightening around my ribs without mercy. The air, once full of sunlight and drifting dust, suddenly felt thin and heavy. The familiar ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, which had kept the rhythm of my life for 50 years, began to sound distant and muffled, as if it were coming from underwater. For all my stubbornness, for all my pride, my body was only a fragile vessel, a tent beginning to tear. For 82 years it had served me well, but now it was failing. My breath caught in my throat, a knot of pain and astonishment. At the edges of my vision, the world began to unravel. The golden afternoon lost its color, fading into dark gray and then into a soft black, like velvet falling over my eyes. And the last thing I felt was not the stabbing pain in my chest. No, the last thing my consciousness registered was the sharp, insistent bite of that brass key pressing into the flesh of my hand. It was my final anchor, my desperate connection to a life slipping through my fingers. My hand, which had fought so hard, loosened, and I fell. I fell away from my pain, away from my house, into the darkness. And then, the darkness did not last. It wasn't like falling asleep and waking up. It was a transition. The pain, the iron band around my chest, disappeared. But it didn't simply stop, do you understand? It was as if something or someone had lifted it from me. As if a heavy, soaking coat had been removed from my shoulders, one I hadn't even realized I'd been wearing for years. And suddenly I was light, a lightness I cannot describe with earthly words, a deep stillness like floating on perfectly calm water without a single ripple. All the weight of the house, the years, the bitterness I had nurtured toward my children was gone. Not torn away, it simply dissolved, as if a gentle hand had reached into my soul and wiped away all the dust, all the rust. Relief was the first thing I felt, a relief so deep, so complete, that it was itself a kind of joy. The sickness in my spirit, the one that had poisoned me for so long, was healed in an instant. And I saw, not with my eyes, but with another kind of sight. I was above, looking down. I saw my body there, slumped in Daniel's armchair, a small heap of clothing and wrinkled skin. I saw the paramedics rush in with their urgency and their equipment. I saw my daughter's face, pale and streaked with tears. She was screaming my name, but I heard nothing. The entire scene was like a silent film. The colors looked strange, faded. The bright red of one paramedic's jacket, the blue of the rug Daniel and I had chosen together, none of it mattered anymore. It was a drama unfolding, but it no longer belonged to me. And the anger I had felt toward my daughter moments earlier, the betrayal that had broken my heart, it was gone. In its place was a calm, a curious, serene compassion. I could see her pain, but it could no longer touch me. The power it once had over me was broken. That was when I felt it, a pull. It wasn't a force dragging me, it was more like an invitation, a beckoning. My attention, which had been fixed on the silent chaos in my living room, was gently redirected toward a point of light. At first it was small and distant, but it was not like a star or a lamp. This light was alive. It pulsed, and it grew, or perhaps I was the one moving toward it. I cannot say. It had the color of liquid gold, warm and pure, and it did not radiate only light. It radiated a feeling my soul recognized immediately, like the face of a long-lost friend. It was the feeling of coming home. No, more than that. It was the feeling that I myself was a home, and that I had been far away from myself for a very, very long time. This was not an ending, this was a destination. A part of my soul, a part I never knew existed, longed for that light with a joy so intense it was almost painful. I wasn't falling or floating. I was being guided, gently, deliberately, toward that glow, that promise. And with every inch closer, I felt the word welcome, not as a sound, but as the very substance of the air around me. Crossing the threshold of that light was not like entering a room. It was like a drop of rain returning to the ocean. I was absorbed, and in that instant I knew I was in the presence. There was no form, No face like the ones we know, yet my soul recognized him with absolute certainty. It was Christ. And no words were needed, there were no questions, only perfect, complete, instantaneous understanding. It wasn't warmth like sunlight on skin, it was shelter. A shelter that penetrated not only my body, but my essence. Every memory, every thought, every part of me I believed to be secret or shadowed. It was an embrace, not of arms, but of total and unconditional acceptance. And there was a sound that was also a feeling, a vibration of pure love resonating within me, saying without words, "You are known, you are loved, welcome home." And in that embrace of light, I knew the most overwhelming truth of all. Never, not for a single moment of my life, had I been alone. Every lonely night after Daniel's passing, every silent tear I thought no one saw, every time my heart shrank with bitterness, he had been there, always. Then my life unfolded before me, not like watching a movie. It was more like seeing for the first time the right side of a great tapestry. On earth, all I had ever seen were the knots, the tangled threads, the dark and confusing colors. I saw the ugly thread of my pride, the coarse thread of my bitterness toward my children, the knots of my stubbornness. But now I saw the pattern. I saw how those dark threads were woven together with the bright golden thread of Daniel's love, with the vibrant colors of my children's births, with the silver thread of every small joy. And the result, the whole tapestry, was, against all expectation, breathtakingly beautiful. It was a pattern of grace. And I saw my children, I saw their hearts, not their words. And my judgment, the heavy plate of lead I had been carrying, melted away. They were not greedy, they were simply lost, afraid. Their desire for the house did not come from cruelty, but from fear of loss, a poverty of spirit that made them cling to bricks and land because they did not know a greater treasure. All my judgment of them had only been the reflection of the beam in my own eye. The thought of my house, my fortress, the one I had fought for with tooth and nail came to my mind, and the brass key. In the light of that presence, the memory of the house was like a photograph of a sandcastle, beautiful for a moment, but destined to be washed away by the tide. The key, my small anchor of defiance, seemed so trivial now, as hollow as a dry leaf carried by the wind. It was my deepest moment of clarity. My house, my beautiful house, had only been a temporary shelter, a wonderful gift for a season of my life, but it was never my true home. My home was here, in this love, a place that cannot be bought or sold. It cannot be locked because its doors have never been closed. I wanted to stay. Oh, with every fiber of my being, I longed to remain in that embrace forever. But just as clearly as I knew I had arrived, I knew something else, a knowing that was not mine, but given to me. It was not my time. I wanted to stay there. Oh, how I wanted to. With every fiber of my being, I longed to dissolve into that embrace of light forever, to remain where I was known, where I was loved beyond measure. But just as clearly as I knew I had arrived, I knew something else, a knowing that was not my own, but given to me with a clarity that allowed no doubt. It was not my time. There were no words, only a command of pure love that flooded my soul. Go and tell them. And the peace, it did not fade gently. It was torn away from me. I felt myself being pulled backward, away from the light, with incredible force. It was a violent return, a blow that threw me back into the prison of my body. Pain flooded back like fire burning in my chest, and the crushing weight of mortality collapsed over me. My mouth opened and a gasp of air rushed in, harsh and painful. My eyes flew open to the sterile white ceiling of a hospital room. The smell, that chemical antiseptic smell, burned my nose. And the sound, the electronic rhythmic beeping of a machine marking the beats of my heart, felt like a cruel torture after the sacred silence from which I had come. Pain burned in my chest like a live coal, and every bone in my body ached under the heavy burden of being here again. I turned my head, an effort that cost me everything, and I saw them, my children. They were there, huddled in a corner, their faces masks of fear and regret that had come too late. And when my eyes met theirs, something miraculous happened. The anger was gone. All the bitterness, all the pain of betrayal had been left behind on the other side. I did not see my accusers. I saw them the way I had seen them in the light, frightened, imperfect, and still mine. And my heart, my physical failing heart, ached for them, an ache of compassion. With an effort that made my arm tremble, I lifted my hand, not to accuse, but to call. My daughter saw it. She approached slowly and took my hand. Her hand was trembling. I looked from her face to my son's, and they saw something in my eyes that confused them. They expected anger, judgment, but all I had to give them was this peace that did not belong to me. I saw the fear in their eyes, and I knew what my mission was, my final mission. I had to let go of the key to my earthly home so that I could be shown the door to my Father's house. This is the truth I came back to tell, for them and for you. Do not spend your years guarding treasures that will turn to dust. Do not build your walls so high that they keep you from seeing the sky. What you build here, your house, your reputation, your little brass keys, are all temporary shelters, sandcastles. Love people, forgive quickly. Let your heart break for the things that break God's heart. Because in the end, at the end of your breath, the only thing that will matter is whether you know the one waiting for you on the other side. Do not fear death. It is not a door that closes. It is a door that opens to the true home. I know it is real because I was there.